Good evening and welcome to Iowa News and Views. My name is Joe Balcom. I'm the host of the program. I'm also a county supervisor in Johnson County. Thanks for joining us. Iowa News and Views is a bona fide public affairs news program. We're glad to have you if this is your first time. We are a community affairs program focusing on state and local issues of interest to Iowans. We've been on for, I think this is show number 30, I believe, or 31. We've been doing this for a little bit more than a year. We'd be interested in your ideas for shows and guests for our show, so please, towards the end of the show, we're going to give you some information about how to contact us. Please do that. I have my remote here. I'm going to set it down. I hope you will too, and stick with us, please. We're going to be talking about environmental issues tonight, specifically water quality and some work of the Iowa Environmental Council to try and get our attention again focused on improving the state's ground and surface waters. And our guests tonight are Charlotte Hubbell, who's the president of the Iowa Environmental Council, and Susan Heathcote, who is the research director also for the Environmental Council. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank
Charlotte, you. What's going on with the Iowa Environmental Council? They've been organized over the last year. What was the impetus to bring the council together, and who's involved with it?
We started a group of meetings, I would say 5 years ago. The council actually has started its 4th year, and we were up and running by January of 1995. Prior to that, we took our time, met with groups of individuals around the state who we felt were interested in environmental issues and wanted to see a reinvigorated environmental community. And from those meetings, the idea of a council, which is an umbrella organization of environmental groups, developed. And that's where we are today. We have about 55 statewide and local environmental groups. We have cooperators, about 4 cooperators, which are quasi-governmental agencies who serve in a non-voting capacity.
Very good. Phenomenally successful at this point. I mean, bringing together 55 organizations around environmental work is very impressive.
Almost every major statewide or local environmental group is a member of our organization. I might also add we have about 300 individual members. We're looking to grow that to perhaps 500 or 1,000.
Very good. Good work.
Thanks.
One of the major initiatives of the last year has been the council's work on this Iowa Water Quality Action Plan, and I'd like to visit about that because I think it has some very interesting recommendations and strategies and goals for improving water quality. As some of our viewers might know, back in 1987, Iowa led the nation in when it passed the Iowa Groundwater Protection Act. It's been about 11 years since then. Susan, how does this plan relate to that work in 1987, and what are some of the goals here that have come along?
Well, it was kind of inspired, I would say, by the Groundwater Protection Act. We realized that that was a landmark act, and it really did set Iowa on a path to really address some of the really serious problems we had with our groundwater quality. But it seemed that some of the programs that were set up by the Groundwater Protection Act had not been carried out. Some of them never received adequate funding. Others had funding initially, but that funding had faltered, and some of the really good initial work was not being continued. And in addition to the groundwater issues, we felt that surface water was now becoming a real concern in the state of Iowa, and that we felt that we needed to take another look at more comprehensive water quality issues in the state of Iowa, looking at both surface and groundwater quality. So this is kind of the initiation of this whole planning process.
Very good. Charlotte, how did this plan come to be in terms of the specifics of this? What were some of the details that brought this together?
Well, as you know, Joe, last year was designated the Year of Water by the governor, and 75 groups came together to celebrate the Year of Water. The council took the lead in bringing people together to assess our water quality and to put together the Water Quality Action Plan, which you've alluded to. We started initially at the beginning of the year with a survey that Professors Lasley and Paget at Iowa State conducted for us, and that survey was clear in showing that Iowans are very concerned about their water quality. 87% are concerned. I think there were about 410 people who were polled. Is that right?
I think that's pretty close.
Yeah. So about 87% were very concerned about water quality. 80% would support additional regulations to encourage water quality protection. After that survey was completed, we then conducted 4 working groups around the state on issues related to health here in Iowa City, agriculture and the environment in Ames, industrial and urban issues in Des Moines, and ecological systems, the health of ecological systems in Cedar Falls. There were about 30 to 40 people who attended each of those working groups, and they were all-day working groups. From that, and from our Water Quality Committee, we drafted an initial draft of the plan, sent that to 750 people around the state, asking them to review it and send us comments. We received comments from 70 people, and those comments were incorporated into the second draft of the plan. The whole event culminated with our conference in the fall in Des Moines, where we had about 210 people in attendance to finalize the plan. It's clear to us that this is a document that has been prepared by a variety of Iowans, rural, urban. We have business people, farmers, of course, educators, policymakers, citizens who are interested in water quality. So almost 1,000 people had a hand in shaping this document.
Very good. Yeah, in reading it, it's extremely well written, very thoughtful, a lot of detail about a direction that we ought to go. Susan, what are some of the goals and strategies here in general that the plan focuses on?
Well, we divided the plan into 4 sections. The first is research and data, and we looked at the needs in that area. We also looked at policy and legislative needs, big area where we need to focus some more attention. Education and outreach was another real important section that we felt we needed to address. And then actually later on in the process we added a 4th area called funding, and it became very clear that a lot of what we would be able to do in the other 3 areas was going to depend on adequate funding, and that means it has to be stable long-term funding so that you can maintain the progress that you're making and have some continuity, especially in research areas and data collection. You need to have continuity of that information to make it more valuable.
It seems like monitoring the quality of our surface water in particular is a huge unmet need. We have, what, about 26,000 miles of rivers, about 45,000 miles of intermittent streams and creeks, 400 or so public lakes, and we have, what, 27 sites that on an annual basis are monitored. You spend a lot of time in the report talking about monitoring. Susan, what specific things are involved here that we should be looking at?
Well, one of our big concerns is, and what you're referring to in that the monitoring that you were mentioning, is what we call ambient monitoring. And what that is monitoring of the general condition of our water. And it's not monitoring that's close to a source of contamination or monitoring that's required by industry or business. It is monitoring that we do to measure the condition of our water in areas where we would expect to see a representative water quality condition. And the fact that we're only monitoring on an annual basis 27 locations on our surface water bodies in Iowa, and those are all on larger rivers. No small streams are monitored. No public lakes are monitored on a regular basis. We aren't monitoring wetlands at all. Those are areas that we need to expand into. These are very important resources. In the area of groundwater monitoring, we're doing a little bit better job, and a lot of that is because of the Groundwater Protection Act. When we consider that over 70% of Iowans depend on groundwater for their drinking water supply, it's a tremendously important resource in the state. We're only monitoring 45 locations on an annual basis for our groundwater. Every 4 years we do monitor 90 locations amongst 6 separate groundwater aquifers that serve different parts of our state. And that's not near adequate enough considering the resource that we're protecting.
Sure.
I might just add that the state of Iowa spends let me rephrase that. $123,000 is spent to monitor surface water in Iowa. None of that is state money. It comes from the EPA. $120,000 is spent to monitor groundwater, $60,000 of which comes from the Geological Survey Bureau.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is the U.S. Geological Survey.
U.S. Geological Survey Bureau. And the other $60,000 of which Iowa does spend. Nebraska, one of our neighbors, spends $650,000 monitoring their water. They have fewer people than we do. Illinois, on the other side of us, spends $2.5 million. So the numbers speak for themselves.
Hey, before you give me that tax cut on the income tax, put some money into this. State legislature.
Yeah.
Why are we doing such a sad job in this area? I mean, the polls show Iowa cares about this. It's sad.
My own personal feeling is that legislators don't realize that their constituents want this. I think we need to do a better job of communicating with our representatives at the legislative level that we want water monitoring. We are willing to spend the money to do it. It doesn't cost a great deal of money. 2 bills were introduced this session that would have required water quality monitoring on a statewide basis, both surface water and groundwater, to the tune of $1 million. $1 million is a drop in the bucket for our budget, for our state budget. And think of the information that we could generate from spending that amount. You know, we need more data, we need more research. Susan is our research director at the council. She's our resident scientist and has an extensive background in water quality. We were lucky to get her. So she knows more than many of us know the state of the inadequate data.
Sure. If you just joined us, you're watching Iowa News and Views. We're at about midpoint in the show. We're talking about water quality here in Iowa. Our guests are Charlotte Hubbell and Susan Heathcote, both from the Iowa Environmental Council. We encourage you to visit our webpage. We'll give you the address here in a second and check it out. We have some interesting information about the show. You can give us feedback on the show, give us your ideas for future guests on the show. Also, we'd like you can also visit the Iowa Environmental Council's webpage where you can find out about this report, the report that we're talking about, the Iowa Water Quality Action Plan, and we encourage you to do that as well. We'll give you some more information about how to get a copy of this later on as well. Also, next time we'll be talking about the issue of political advertising on public access TV and some issues that our show has faced recently with TCI of Central Iowa. We'll be having some commentary on that, so tune in next time for an update on where we stand there. Back to water quality. So when we talk about monitoring, we're talking about being able to have safe water where you have fish that you catch out of the river you can eat, and gosh, do you think we could ever swim in the river again in any of our Iowa rivers? How is the monitoring and this research going to help develop a consensus about cleaning up our water, Susan?
Well, what it's going to help us do is help us identify what are the issues that are impacting our water. I know there's been a lot of concern about livestock impacts on water. We don't really have a good baseline to tell us what the water quality has been through this transition from the smaller operations into the larger operations. And it would be very helpful for us to have some real hard information on that to tell us whether we're seeing improvements or degradation of our water quality related to a specific change in policy in the state. Certainly, we feel that there are many other issues. We're concerned about the nitrates in the water, some of which might come from livestock waste. Also, fertilizer is a big source of contribution to that problem. And that goes beyond the state of Iowa. That goes downstream into the Mississippi River and down into the Gulf, and the concern about the hypoxia there. We're going to need to deal with that issue, and we need to have the facts about what our contribution is there and what we perhaps can do to help alleviate that problem.
Didn't EPA determine that 0% of Iowa's rivers, streams, lakes meet certain standards for being swimmable, fishable? That's
what you're talking about is the water assessment, and that's the Clean Water Act requires every state every 2 years to do an assessment of the water quality, both their surface and groundwater. And one of the things they have to determine is, based on different classifications of water, whether or not the water is meeting its designated uses. Now, some water bodies are designated for swimming and fishing. Others are designated general purpose. Some are drinking water supplies, and they may have to meet more rigorous standards. So there's a different standard depending on the uses, the designated uses. However, no surface water that was monitored in Iowa is fully supporting all of its designated uses. Some percentage is what they call meeting its designated uses but threatened, and that means there are pressures on that water supply that would indicate the potential for it not to meet its designated uses.
Sure.
And that's where monitoring could really help us get an early warning of a problem.
Well, I know that the Iowa State University, in their infrastructure report, this has been more than a year ago, indicated we had about $2 billion of unmet wastewater needs from sewage treatment plants in Iowa, small and large systems that needed improvement due to changing regulations. $2 billion, that's a lot of money, and it's a lot of water quality as well. That another way we could spend that surplus we have, I would say. Building infrastructure is important to our future, I think, as well. Another one of the strategies that's talked about is education and public outreach. We talk about monitoring, getting information, gathering information, and getting it out. How important is getting information to the public about this issue and involving them in a solution, Charlotte?
Well, clearly that's very important. We need additional research information, additional data, and then the public has to be able to have access to that data. So often what we have found is that existing data is not compatible. It's very difficult to understand because it's usually in some kind of scientific jargon. It needs to be readable, understandable, available to the average citizen. And so that's one of our recommendations, that additional research information as it becomes available is synthesized and made available to the public. And we also have recommended that education be a lifelong event in terms of understanding where your water comes from, knowing your watershed. These are all things that don't cost a lot of money, but it just takes some leadership. And I guess we're looking to the legislature and to DNR, to the governor, and particularly the new governor, whoever that might be, to provide that leadership.
Well, there's been a lot of good research. I mean, there's a blueprint here to move ahead, it seems to me. Susan, in terms of citizen involvement in helping doing monitoring, is there a role for citizen involvement there?
Well, we think so, and we think it's been one that's been underutilized in the state of Iowa. Over the last couple of years, we've been working on trying to build more support in the state for citizen involvement in actual water monitoring projects. And there are a number of citizen groups in the state of Iowa who have been doing monitoring projects in their local water bodies. Some of them have been doing this since the 70s. Others more recently have started this. And the council just recently published a directory of 31 groups in Iowa that are doing monitoring. And we've been working very closely with some of our member organizations as well as the Department of Natural Resources to set up a volunteer monitoring program in Iowa that would help support these local projects and give them technical support as well as hopefully some financial assistance in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
DNR is in the midst right now of hiring a statewide coordinator to coordinate this volunteer effort. So we feel fortunate that they've picked up the ball and they're going with that.
Great.
But now we need to implement our plan, our water quality action plan. We do have 12 teams paired with the 12 goals contained in the plan. And I would certainly encourage anyone in the audience, if they are interested in joining up on one of these teams, to get a copy of the plan. And we can also send out a list of the implementation teams with the plan. And people can sign on.
Mm-hmm. Great. I note that you also have a regular, I believe this is what, quarterly newsletter?
Actually,
or
it's
is it
just twice a year.
Twice a year
Twice a year.
newsletter that if people are interested in becoming members of the Iowa Environmental Council, they'd get this, which is a very nice publication about what's going on.
Susan has a very good article in this issue about water quality monitoring.
Right.
So
very good. Any final points, Susan, on that you want people to know about this plan?
Well, you know, I think that it won't, that this plan really is going to depend on the people in the state of Iowa to pick it up and carry it forward. This certainly isn't something that the Environmental Council can do without the help of the citizens of the state of Iowa. So I really do hope that with the concern and the support of the citizens, we can carry this forward.
And what has been the response so far? I mean, this has been out for since what, November?
Actually, no, not even that long, because in November we finalized
That's
comments, and then we had to incorporate them, get it to the printer. February, I believe, is what comes to mind.
That's when the final came out.
Yeah.
A lot of work's gone into it, and I think there's a lot more work ahead of us. This is really not the end of the process, but the beginning.
I'd like to reiterate that many, many people had a hand in putting together this action plan from a diversity of backgrounds. So we feel that this is a plan that's been created by citizens for citizens. And we encourage people to read it at the very least, and either join up with a volunteer water monitoring group in their community or start one up.
Very good. Very good. Appreciate having you both here.
Well, thanks for
inviting us. It's been a nice discussion.
Yes, thank you.
We're going to give you some information about how to get this plan here, because we think it's worth taking a look at. I think it's going to be on the web page, or is on the web page of the Iowa Environmental Council. We'll give you the address for that. We have come to that portion in the show called the People's Podium, and we have with us this evening Monique DiCarlo. And Monique is the director of the Women's Resource and Action Center here in Iowa City. And Monique is going to talk to us a little bit about some organizers training that they've been working on. And it's actually a series of training, and they have one coming up called Train the Trainer. Monique.
Hi. The Women's Resource and Action Center has developed a new program called the Social Change Training Program. The program is a series of ongoing seminars designed to teach practical community building and activist skills. Some of our past seminars have focused on effective meeting facilitation and working with the media. The Social Change Training Program is dedicated to supporting progressive, especially feminist-based social change. All of our seminars are designed with practice time for skill building. This month, April 24th through the 26th, I invite you to attend our next seminar called Training the Trainer. This seminar will provide learning opportunities that increase your capacity to design and facilitate group learning experiences. We'll use video feedback as well as personal feedback. And the seminar will encourage the use of training tools that avoid lecturing and encourage participation. In addition, participants will learn tools for working effectively across cultural and ethnic boundaries. Training the trainer is an ideal seminar for people who train or supervise volunteers, and for those who lead workshops, in-services, or training seminars. Of course, men and women are encouraged to participate. The seminars are always fun with plenty of opportunities to meet others involved in social change work. And many of our organizations rely heavily on the work of our volunteers or members, and we hope that this seminar will help you in your work, in this type of work. The April seminar will be held in Iowa City, beginning on Friday evening, April 24th, and will end on Sunday, April 26th. The fee for the workshop is $50, and most meals are included. Upcoming seminar topics include culturally competent organizing, as well as grassroots fundraising. I look forward to meeting you at our April training. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Monique.
Thank you.
The number again is 335-1486. There it is on the screen. Call in. You've got plenty of time in the next couple weeks to give RAC a call and check out that training. We appreciate you being with us this evening. You've been watching Iowa News and Views. I'd like to again thank Charlotte Hubbell and Susan Heathcote from the Iowa Environmental Council for being here, and good luck with your work. It's a terrific project you've been involved with, and hopefully we'll get this thing implemented over the next few years. My name's Joe Balcom. I'm the host. You've been watching Iowa News and Views. We're a bona fide news program, if you were wondering. And don't forget, this is just a news program. What's important is what you're doing each and every day in your community to make it a better place. We've got a few people here tonight, Charlotte, Susan, and Monique, working on it. We hope you'll get out there and do the same. We'll see you next time.